So we're doing an advanced version of the question we did the other day. So instead of making a program that'll convert a number from 1 to 10 to Roman numerals, we're making a program that, when run, will request a number from 1 to 3000 and then return that number as a Roman numeral. So what we're going to do again, we're going to first look at what the relationship is between Roman numerals and regular numbers. And so we're thinking a big number, so let's just make a number from somewhere from 1 to 3000 there, something that uses everything. And what will that number end up being? That will end up being M, CC, what was this, XXX, and then VI. So if we look at the comparison between these two, we can see it divides up very similarly to the way that regular numbers divide up into the thousands, hundred. So we've got a 1000 section, which just goes straight to M. We've got a 200 section that's straight to CC, a 10 section that becomes XXX here, and a unit section. So what we could do is we can, instead of making a single string that contains, a single string array that contains all the Roman numerals, we could create a string array that contains the numerals for each section. So for the units we could have one, for the tens we could have one, for the hundreds we could have one, and for the thousands we can have one. So we'll have a string array for each of the different places of the numbers. So changing this, we'll make this into units, and then instead of going from 1 to 10 as we did in the original exercise, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go from 0 to 9. Now the other difference, well, the biggest difference really between Roman numerals and regular numbers is that there is no 0 for a Roman numeral. It just skips over the number completely. So if you have a number like 101, what it'll do is it'll get the 100 and then throw in the 1 there, and it'll have nothing in between here. So that, in a way, would be a problem for if we're trying to grab a number and we have nothing to put in there. But luckily, we can actually just put nothing into our string array, as long as it still is that data type. So in this case, for instance, let's get rid of the 10 at the end, and we'll put in a new figure here for the 0, and in there we'll just put an empty string. So then if it does try to add that, what literally it'll do is, if say we had 100 and 110 here, it'll do the first two from this string we're going to make, obviously, 110, and then if it tries to grab the 0, it'll just come straight here to this unit array, and it'll just grab the empty string. It'll just literally just put in that blank space, and it'll end up with 110, the way we like it over there. Okay, so the other thing is also, this works for in-between bits. So if we had a string array that was pretty much the same as this, in fact, let's just copy it. Let's make the tens array, sorry. Tens array here, and we'll change all these, but just looking at looking at what the output would be here. 101, it would put in the 100, as we're going to have when we put in a string array for the hundreds, and then it'll come to the tens. Again, it'll grab this empty spot, it'll put it in there, which will be nothing, and then it'll grab the 1 from here, the I, and it'll put it in. So that works out perfectly. Or in the same case, as if we're using modulus to find all the numbers, like we will be doing to find each section, then if we have code that will just go through it'll go through the thousands, it'll go through the tens, and it'll go through the units, it'll go through the hundreds, it'll go through all the different ones. It's what it'll do is that if there is nothing in the thousands spot, right, and if the number is only 100, it'll still check the thousands, but when modulating it by 1,000, when modulating 100 by 1,000, you get the result 0, right? So you'll get 0, which means that it'll try and go to index 0 of the thousands array, which doesn't exist yet. Let's just make that actually. So hundreds, we're going to have 4 arrays: the units, the tens, the hundreds, and the thousands. Okay, we're going to change all the what's inside each of them, but just as an example, it'll try and go to a thousands array here, because that's the first number, the first code it's going to do is it's going to modulate our number, whichever our number is here. Let's say we'll have 123, but there is no thousands in this number. So modulate it by 1,000, it'll go to 0, and then it'll grab this bit and add it on to the beginning of our word, you see? And that's fine because we don't have 1,000s, and it'll go straight to the next one. It'll say, okay, we're modulating this one by 100 now. We're going to grab the hundreds. That ends up being a 1, and it'll then add it on to our word, and it'll continue going, and it'll put in a C. So what it'll really look like is that it's in the code. It'll be adding that, plus, in this case, it'll be in the tens will be 2 x's, plus 3 I. And then altogether, what it'll look like as a string, it'll be C, X, X, I. So that works out nicely. By putting that empty string in the zeros place, we don't need any if or else statements to make sure that we don't put any zeros in. So anyway, let's just finish up this code then. Here we go. I don't feel like I'm explaining this well, but anyway, if there are any questions, I'll make additional videos or I'll make comments or something. So we're just going to replace these strings with what they should be, these string arrays, I mean. X, and X, C. And then this one's C, 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 D, D, DC, DCC, DCCC, and then CM. And then for the thousands place, we actually only need it to go to 3 places because that's all we're going up to is 3,000. All our program needs to do. And M. Alright, so, okay, now just, we're going to use most of the code we already have written. So we've got a scanner, we're requesting a number, we'll change it from 1 to 3,000 instead of 1 to 1,000 in the request. And then we're going to get a number from the user, we're doing that, and now we're using the input to get a numeral. So we've made a string called numeral. In this case, since we're adding to it, we're not just replacing the string numeral, so it means we're going to have to initialize it if we're going to try to add to it. So we're going to, while we make it up here, while we declare it, we'll also initialize it to be an empty string. And then at this point, we're just adding to it. And we're adding to it. We're going to start at the thousands place because we're going from left to right, and that's how it would be written. And because the strings are added to left to right, we're going to have to do that. So we're going with thousands, and the index of that, it will be my input, but it will be my input divided by 1,000. So whatever the result of that will be is, oh yeah, and when I think I said earlier is like my input or that number mod 1,000. I meant, sorry, divided by 1,000 would equal 0. If I said that earlier, I think I just said that earlier. Anyway, so then once we've got that, so that what that'll do is if that'll get the thousands, that'll put the thousands in wherever that is, and then we're going to continue on here. We're going to do numeral plus equal. We're going to go with the hundreds. And again, we're using my input, and we're not this time. We are going to have to first mod it by 1,000 in order to get rid of any thousands that are there. And again, this isn't affecting our input, so our input's always going to remain the same. It's just that this is how it's being used right now, and then we're dividing it by 100. So we're taking the input, we're modding it by 1,000 to chop off anything that was on the thousands place, and then all of that we're dividing by 100 to get whatever the hundreds position is, to use that as the index for the hundreds. Then we're doing plus equals tens, and we're doing the same thing. We're doing my inputs. We're modding it by 100 this time, and then we're taking all that and dividing it by 10, and then we're doing numeral plus equals units. Do I call it units? I call it units, yes. And then we're doing my inputs modding it by 10, and yeah, that's it. Just modding it by 10 actually. We don't even need the brackets around it. Okay, so let's just check if this works now. And yep, it'll do that, and it'll say your numeral is, yep, it looks like it should work. Let's just give it a go. Let's run it. Here, I'll tell you what, let's bring this up here again. Let's hit run. 1 to 3,000. Okay, since we didn't set up a condition to test if the user will enter an accurate number, so we could end up putting in something like 4,999, but since we're not going to do that, we're just going to, because that'll end up grabbing an index that's out of range. But in your own program, you can adjust that, and you can throw in that if-else statement. So we're going to enter a number from 1 to 3,000. We'll stay within that bound then, those bounds. 2,999. And your Roman numeral is MMCMXCIX, and that looks like it's accurate. So yeah, we're done.